We've all heard it, again and again, echoing through ritual halls and ruined cities alike. Creator, I implore you, refine me. It's a mantra of the Exaltists, fanatical, unwavering, almost euphoric in their devotion. At first glance, it sounds just like another cult slogan. Extreme, yes, but familiar. Yet the more often it appears, the harder it becomes to ignore one question. What exactly is the Creator? And why are so many people willing to give up everything just to be acknowledged by it? For a long time, the answer stayed buried beneath layers of spectacle, endless rituals, sacrifices, and victims. The Exaltists made sure of that, until version 2.4. That was the moment the Creator slipped. During the chaos of its attempted descent, while we were busy fighting for survival, the narrative quietly revealed something it couldn't take back: a name. The boss we faced wasn't anonymous. It was called Sobek. And that changes everything. Sobek isn't just a random monster name. It is the name of an ancient Egyptian crocodile god, associated with destruction, kinship, and divine violence. This isn't vague aesthetic borrowing, it's a direct reference, a key. Because Sobek is powerful, yes, but historically, Sobek is never the supreme god in Egyptian mythology. Sobek is often a weapon, a manifestation, sometimes even a mount, but not the final authority, which suddenly makes the boss fight deeply unsettling. Listen closely to what happens during the encounter. The crocodile speaks with the voice of Sarah Florin, yet refers to her as my most devout servant. At the same time, Ye Shiyuan, clearly possessed, speaks with the cold authority of the Creator itself. Sometimes they alternate, sometimes they exist simultaneously. According to the in-game enemy archive, the Creator itself comments on this state. Who is truly controlling whom? The person on my back is a real prisoner. The spire should be put to good use right up to the very end, don't you think? These are not observations. They are first-person whispers, calm, mocking, and disturbingly intimate. In other words, the Creator is Sobek, and yet it's something far beyond Sobek. Sobek is not the answer, Sobek is the surface. Once that Egyptian coordinate is established, the problem becomes much larger. Ancient Egyptian mythology isn't structured like Greek myths, with a single ruling family at the top. It is a fluid overlapping system, thousands of deities, shared domains, shifting identities, and gods that merge, split, and evolve over millennia. And when we start comparing the Creator's abilities, contradictions appear almost immediately. Blinding light with no warmth, absolute authority over death and resurrection, the power to restore identity or erase it completely, and above all, the ability to whisper, to influence thoughts directly, slipping past resistance and lodging itself in the human mind. None of these traits are unique on their own. They point to different directions, toward solar deity, toward gods of the underworld, toward figures associated with language, magic, and cognition. But no single conventional god accounts for all of them, which forces an uncomfortable question. What if the Creator was never meant to represent one god at all? To answer that, we need to stop looking at individual deities and start looking at how Egyptian theology actually works. Ancient Egyptian belief did not always treat gods as separated, isolated beings. In many contexts, a single god could temporarily represent the entire cosmos, while all other gods became its aspects. But one idea goes even further. Egyptian text speaks of a hidden, ultimate principle beneath the surface of polytheism. The one who makes himself into millions, a singular force, an origin that fragments itself into countless forms. That force has a name, Amun. And when unified with the sun god Ra, it becomes something else entirely, Amun-Ra, the god of gods. At that point, the pieces lock into place with alarming precision. The name Amun literally means the hidden one, a god without fixed form, unseen, yet omnipresent. Exactly how Sarah Florin describes a creator, never encountered directly, yet always close, watching, waiting. Amun is also known as a god who speaks to the heart, a deity believed to dwell within human consciousness itself, capable of influencing thought and intent, which mirrors the creator's most disturbing ability, its talent for persuasion, temptation, and psychological intrusion. The whispers, the promises, the slow erosion of resistance. And as Amun-Ra, this being is not merely powerful. It represents the absolute, unified will of existence itself, a flawless, self-consistent principle from which all creation flows, the same perfection Sarah worships, the same inevitability the Creator proclaims. Even the title Creator stops being symbolic. Amun-Ra is not simply a god who created the world. It is creation as a concept, the life force that becomes everything, and can just as easily reclaim it. Which leads to a conclusion that's difficult to ignore. The Creator is not modeled after a monster, not a demon, not a false god. It is modeled after the highest possible divine authority in Egyptian theology. A being that does not conquer reality, it rewrites it. And if that is what the Exaltists are trying to bring into the world, then whatever comes next is not a struggle for territory or power or control. It is something far more final. Because a god like Amun-Ra does not arrive to rule the world. It arrives to decide whether the world should continue to exist at all. Once the Creator's identity comes into focus, a far more uncertain question follows. If there's been truly correspondence to Amun-Ra, a god whose authority stands above all others, then why go through all this? Why orchestrate the Exaltists, manipulate overseers, and engineer sacrifices? Surely not just to arrive and fight one battle? The answer lies not in who the Creator is, but in what such a being is meant to do. The Exaltists themselves tell us, if we take them seriously. Long before the descent attempt, Sarah Florin proclaimed her faith. Life and death, existence and annihilation, splendor and decay, ecstasy and suffering, all of it, she believed, would ultimately return to the Creator. And when the Creator finally speaks, it confirms this. Forget the mortal world, cross beyond life and death, the brilliant and the ruined, all things shall return to me. This isn't conquest, it's reclamation. Ancient Egyptian theology gives us the framework to understand this. Amun-Ra is described as the one who makes himself into millions. Creation is dispersion. the one fractured into the many. And if creation is dispersion, then its inverse is inevitable. To gather everything back, to return multiplicity to unity. But what happens to the world when everything returns? The answer is hidden in the language itself. The Exaltists proclaim, all things shall be purified and return to clarity. The word for clarity, 澄澈, uses water radical. To a native reader, this is explicit. Returning to clarity means dissolving back into liquid. This is why Sarah calls the Creator the master of the source, 原初之主. Not an abstract origin, but the headwaters, the place where all flows begins. This leads us directly to the foundation of ancient Egyptian cosmology. The ordered world was never the default state. It was a fragile anomaly, a single bubble of structure floating within Dune, the infinite primordial waters. That bubble was forced into existence by the creator god, Atum. And here is the rule. If the bubble breaks, the water rushes back in. Order collapses. The world returns to chaos. This perfectly explains the creator's ambition in Zenless Zone Zero. It does not want to rule the bubble. It wants to pop it, to let the world dissolve back into the source. In Egyptian myths, Amun-Ra undergoes a daily transformation. At dawn, he rises from the waters as Capri. At noon, he maintains order as Ra. At dusk, he becomes Atum, and reverse creation begins. In the Book of the Dead, Atum declares, I shall destroy all I have made. The earth shall return to noon. This is not failure, it is function. Atum then declares his final state. He will remain alone, transform into a snake, unknown to gods and men. A snake, both beginning and end. The Ouroboros, a perfect loop, infinity. Now let's look again at the Exaltists logo. The twisted figure 8, the receding form of the Creator. This is not symbolism added after the fact. It is Atum's end state made visible. With this key, the entire world of Zenless Zone Zero snaps into focus. Ether behaves like primordial chaos, formless, uniform, hostile to identity. Those consumed by it lose the self. They become ethereals. The hollows are not locations, they are ruptures, cracks in the world bubble. Even their shape gives it away. They are bubbles. Ether aptitude them is simple. How long can someone endure before drowning in chaos? From this perspective, the Creator is not invading the world, it is puncturing it. And because it exists on a higher plane, it cannot enter directly. It needs gates, vessels, sacrifices, anchors that can survive chaos long enough to hold the breach open. That is the true function of the Exaltists. This also explains a final contradiction. Why does the Creator desire certain weapons, yet remain vulnerable to them? When reclaiming the Qingming sword, it says, what should have been mine, taken by my own blood? There could be no more fitting it. Under the logic of the one and many, these weapons are not foreign. They are fragments of the Creator itself. To strike them is to strike its own flesh. At this point, the pattern is unmistakable. Primordial chaos, a fragile order, a weapon born from the source, used to resist the source. Ancient Egypt, Zenless Zone Zero, Genshin Impact, EVA. Different names, different imagery, the same cosmological skeleton. Which brings us to the final sign. At the end of version 2.4, 4 resonance points appear. In Egyptian burial rites, the dead were sealed into 4 canopic jars. 3 align disturbingly well, 1 remains. The intestines, the organ of selection and absorption. This suggests the final stage is not destruction, it is choice. And one figure stands out, not for power, but perception. Someone who seizes what others cannot, someone drawn forward by fragments, echoes, whispers. This is not temptation, it is seduction through knowledge. And given the creator's established behavior, its psychological warfare, its history of possession, I suspect the final confrontation will not take the form of a monster. It will appear as our teacher, a familiar face, one meant to make us hesitate, not only to claim the vessel, but to shatter the heart. If the Creator has a final candidate, a final refinement, then this story is no longer about stopping a god. It is about whether that god succeeds in choosing what comes next. Now the story of the Exaltists is not just a court narrative. It is a meticulous reconstruction of ancient Egyptian cosmology, from Sobek to Amun-Ra, to Atum, to the Ouroboros. Every piece connects. This is the thrill of deep law archaeology, following faint clues until a complete philosophical system emerges. Zenless Zone Zero is not borrowing symbols, it is rebuilding a world view. And while I may critique its pacing, I cannot deny its cultural ambition. It weaves together contemporary internationalism, rugged Americana, Cantonese tradition, and modern sci-fi into a single organic fabric. As long as this depth remains, I'm willing to stay on this path with you. Finally, a note on originality. The deduction chains, methodological mappings, and the core thesis presented here are the result of independent research. Discussions are welcome, but if you reference these conclusions, please credit the source. Respect for original thought is the only way to prevent this community from truly returning to chaos. Thank you for following this long deduction. This has been the Greedy Cat ZZZ. Reject superficial labels. Savor the deep dive. See you at the next puzzle.